How a highly sensitive person can cope with overstimulation. The word sensitive has sense as its base. Therefore, a highly sensitive person is someone whose 5 classical senses can become overly stimulated more than the average person. Their senses of sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste cause a higher than normal level of brain activity when triggered. Because the response to overstimulation is often excessively negative, let's look at a few coping strategies that the HSP can use to lower feelings of stress and anxiety when triggered. Preparation is key. Each morning, remind yourself that your senses are on high alert. Look at this as a positive thing. It means your central nervous system is more talented and capable than the average person. It also means there's a good chance that a situation that might not cause much reaction for most people could be difficult for you to process. Have a conversation with yourself each morning. Be thankful for the fact that your 5 senses are exceptional in their ability to recognize sensory input. Tell yourself that overstimulation will happen somehow and that you control your response. Ask others what they are experiencing. If you smell smoke in an inappropriate situation, your highly sensitive sensory network could save the day. Sometimes, though, you feel like you are overstimulated in some way when your personal response might not be correct. If one or more of your senses gets alarm bells ringing and you don't see any reason to be concerned as you are, mention your feelings to someone else. Ask them what they are experiencing. If several people don't have the same sensory response as you, this might help calm your racing mind. Remember that you are a deep thinker. We all have a tendency to overthink things every once in a while. It can cause stress, anxiety, and frustration, even when you realize this is happening. Take a deep breath when your senses are stimulated to a mental breaking point. Calm your mind and go to a safe and comfortable spot emotionally. Then remind yourself that you are a deep thinker. Highly sensitive people are deep processors. They have a tendency to overthink in the simplest of situations. Remembering that you tend to think too much in some situations can help you spot an overreaction to an experience that doesn't require such a dramatic response. Control over your emotions is possible when your senses are overly stimulated. Remember who you are. Celebrate the fact that you are more aware of the world around you than most people. How the highly sensitive person can cope with emotional fatigue. Highly sensitive people have senses that can easily become overstimulated. They have a much higher level of empathy than others. Their awareness of their surroundings keeps their senses working over time, and they have a depth of information processing unlike the average person. These responses are natural and automatic for some people. They don't choose to be this way. In many cases, this highly evolved sensory network is a positive thing. It can alert sensitive people to dangers most of us don't recognize. Sometimes, though, it causes stress, anxiety, and emotional fatigue. Here are a few things you can do if this happens to you. They help you calm your mind and emotions and get to a place of peace and calm rather than emotional distress. Recognize your intuition is possibly incorrect. The highly sensitive person has intuition that is often incredibly accurate. Their senses and emotions are well tuned to pick up on signals that are invisible to most people. In some situations, this causes them to believe their intuition and hunches instead of logic and reason. You might give your intuition too much credit if you are constantly stressed out emotionally. Your senses are constantly trying to read people and environments. When this intuitive process doesn't take a rest, it can stress out the most level-headed person. Sometimes, what you are perceiving is not actually what's happening. Recognizing that your intuition isn't always right, this is true of all of us, can keep you from responding with emotional exaggeration when that's the wrong response. Spend more time in your safe space. Where do you feel safe and grounded? If you could be anywhere right now, where would that be? Do you have friends, family members, or others that make you feel positive, happy, and not emotionally overblown? Spend more time in those environments. Remember that emotional intensity may feel great when it's positive, but it can be as fatiguing and potentially damaging as a negative experience, especially when it is chronic and never-ending. Creating a cozy and comfortable place that doesn't expect too much of you emotionally is absolutely vital for the peace of mind of a highly sensitive person. Eat more of these foods. Cut back on sugar and get more stress-relieving foods and beverages into your diet to help you manage your emotions. They will lead to more emotional balance and fewer spikes and crashes. Leafy green vegetables, avocados, blueberries, wild-caught salmon, green tea, chamomile tea, turmeric, yogurt, almonds, dark chocolate without added sugar, oranges and other citrus fruits. Dramatic emotional highs and lows can lead to mental and physical stress. Emotional fatigue is a very real threat to the highly sensitive person. These coping mechanisms can deliver emotional balance if your sensitive nature often has your emotions spiking and crashing. 3 proven coping strategies for highly sensitive people. Life can make you second-guess yourself. You wonder if you have what it takes to cope with setbacks. Things are going along fine, and out of the blue, wham! A huge barrier is thrown in your way. A path that was otherwise easy to navigate suddenly appears impossible to handle. That can lead to a lot of negative emotions. Will you be able to get past this problem? If you had prepared yourself for potential issues like this, maybe it wouldn't have been a problem. But you didn't. So your self-image and self-belief falter, and you question your ability to create positive results. That happens to all of us from time to time. For the highly sensitive person, HSP, it can be devastating. Their sensory perception is supercharged. What might be seen as a minor setback to most people is sometimes viewed as a major problem to the HSP. This is why these people with highly tuned sensory networks need to have reliable coping strategies they can implement quickly. Here are 3 proven methods for dealing with intense emotional responses to the inevitable problems life will hand you. 1. Identify your triggers. What is making you feel this way? Be honest with yourself. Is your response overblown or exaggerated? It's important to be who you are. That means letting your emotions express themselves. Then take a deep breath and calm down. Go to a quiet, calm place physically and in your mind. Try to identify what made you respond in such an emotional way. If you are stressing out over an upcoming party you must host, set aside your fears of failure by preparing ahead of time. Don't wait until the last minute to address the details leading to a successful party. If there's no action you can take to better address a situation, remind yourself that your anxiety has a lifespan. Eventually, it will be over. Distract yourself and remember that this is just a temporary experience. 2. Remember that your perception of reality might be wrong. Highly sensitive people sometimes overblow or exaggerate a situation. Their thoughts can become exceptionally positive when they are in a good mood. Unfortunately, when something upsets them, they can see the entire world and everyone in it is terrible, with no positive outcome in sight. The coping strategy here is to write down your thoughts. If you think the world is always out to get you, write that down. Record the date and time you had that thought. Then record what was going on in your life and what experiences or situations you were involved in. Keeping an emotions journal like this can help you realize that sometimes your perception of reality is incorrect. 3. Remind yourself that your thoughts may be lying to you. The highly sensitive person might start to believe the thoughts that appear when an intense emotional response occurs. This isn't always good. Often our thoughts are driven by our ego and survival instinct. They don't necessarily put us in the best place. Emotional reasoning should be abandoned sometimes. Your emotions dictate your thoughts. Your thoughts drive your actions. And if they are fueled by your emotions rather than logic and reason, you might end up with an unenviable result. Being highly sensitive has its upside. Your senses are finely tuned to give you a deeper perception of your life experience. Sometimes, though, your highly evolved sensory network can work against you. When it does, use these coping skills to put yourself in a better place, mentally and emotionally. This 4-step process can help you make better decisions as a highly sensitive person. Pause, stop, slow down. We can all benefit from those words of advice from time to time. Those words can lead to positive outcomes for the emotionally sensitive person. Here's a 4-step formula that helps you pump the brakes and slow down. You choose the right decision instead of letting your emotions drive your response. Critique your emotions. You have been ruled by your emotions for so long. As a highly sensitive person, letting your feelings drive your behaviors is easy. That's not always a good thing. To make better decisions and receive better outcomes, look at how you respond emotionally to some situation, person, or environment. Be objective. What triggered your emotions? How do you feel about them? Do you feel you need to act immediately? What other feelings do you have? Break down your emotions. Remember when your emotional response caused regret and a negative outcome? Pause to check your emotions before acting upon them. Accept your emotions. Just because you have a feeling or thought doesn't mean it is inherently good or bad. If you don't believe that, consider this. The National Science Foundation tells us that the typical person has as many as 60,000 thoughts daily. How could you act on every one of them, or even a small amount? For most people, 80% of thoughts are negative. This could lead to many negative consequences if they were all acted upon. Acceptance means recognizing your emotions and not necessarily responding to them with action. Look at the information your emotions are providing. What are your emotions saying to you? What is really going on if someone infuriates you? Maybe an experience tells you that you need to spend less time in the company of that individual. Instead of looking at the emotion itself and how it makes you feel, see what information it gives you. This can help you effectively create an environment in the future that will deliver better experiences. Give yourself a little time. This is all about pausing. You've accepted that you are having emotions. You looked at your emotions objectively. You have taken time to gather any information they might have provided. Now it's time to remind yourself that if you can't control your emotional response, don't worry. It's going to pass. Nothing lasts forever, including powerful emotions. This is a simple 4-step process for making better decisions as a highly sensitive person. They help you cope with your emotions rather than letting them control how you respond to the world. This can lead to more positive life experiences and a healthier decision-making process. To cope as a highly sensitive person, stop marinating in painful emotions. Chicken, fish, and beef are sometimes marinated to enhance their flavors. They are placed in a bowl or a sealed bag with a liquid-based marinade. There, they sit in a refrigerator for hours, possibly overnight, resulting in a desirable flavor boost. That's a positive experience. Unfortunately, sometimes we marinate our minds and emotions in painful experiences. We continue to obsess over them. They can't seem to move into our past because we won't let them. This extends the effect of painful emotions and means we can't move forward to more positive feelings. If this happens to you, here are a few ways to cope with a negative experience. They help the highly sensitive person to stop marinating in painful feelings and to move on to better experiences. Remember, you are what you eat. We humans are programmable, and that's a wonderful thing. It means we can practice certain habits and create the desired life experience. This is a natural process that works for all of us. It's available to highly sensitive people and those with a duller emotional response to the world. This works because we are what we feed our brains and bodies. If you eat food that is terrible for you and known to cause health problems, that's the reality you will create. If you experience something painful as an emotionally sensitive person, you don't have to eat that meal forever. Move past it. Please don't continue to obsess over it, or you will be feeding your brain and your emotions something that will predictably extend a painful and negative experience. Bad things are going to happen, and you don't have to carry that experience around with you forever. You did not choose to be born with a highly evolved sensory network. Your mind, central nervous system, and emotions work together to sometimes create a dramatic response to your life experiences. This can be a blessing, and sometimes it feels like a curse. Difficult times come for all of us. When they visit a highly sensitive person, they can seem devastating. While you can't control much of what happens to you, you can decide whether you will embrace that negative experience or move on. It can be very difficult to get past a big loss or failure, but you can do it. Allow yourself to begin the rest of your life expecting wonderful, beautiful things to happen. It's important to unpack your emotional suitcase from time to time. Open it regularly and see what's in there. If you are holding on to painful emotions, you can stop doing that today. When you do, the sense of relief you get will take your highly sensitive nature to a positive place, and you'll want to spend more time there.